story, the Torah, the tefillin, the teachings of the tzaddikim. These marks help us bring ourselves back. They give us GPS. Okay, I'm over here, I need to get there, and if I just keep going down this road and this way, I'll get there, and I feel like I'm not normal, but really, I used to be normal, and I can be normal again. And being normal again is about getting back to our true selves. We know that the process of teshuvah is returning to Hashem. But more than that, it's the process of really returning to our true selves, who we are. And this time of year in Elul is a perfect time to discuss various aspects of healing, because healing, could you shut that door, Elena? Thank you. Because healing, we have a lot of wonderful children here ready and eager to help.
Eyes closed the door.
So healing, and tshuva are two sides of the same coin. It's a little distracting in here, so I'm going to wait till the kids leave. Okay. So healing and teshuvah are two sides of the same coin. Now, Rebbe Nachman, who was Rebbe Nachman's leading student and scribe, who also wrote many masterpieces of original works at the request of Rebbe Nachman, tells us about the four elements. The four elements are fire, air, water, and earth. And he discusses this because he explains that in order to have equilibrium, in order to have balanced thoughts, these spiritual elements inside us need to be balanced. Fire, when it's imbalanced, fire rises when it's imbalanced. It produces anger and arrogance and irritability. As a Gingy, I know that. All the freckles. Water, air is the element associated when it's out of balance, okay, because air flows everywhere, with idle chatter, chit-chat, talk that can often devolve into gossip, lashon hara, so on and so forth. Then we have water, which we also have to bring into balance in order to have balanced thoughts. Water is the element that's associated with unhealthy desires, pleasure seeking. Okay? Before I go to the fourth element, I want to tell you, just so you know, that nobody has perfectly balanced elements. Maybe some people do, I don't know. Nobody has perfectly balanced elements. It's something that we work on our whole lives. And we're going to talk about the process of that, okay? And the fourth element is earth. And this is the element that most people struggle with at some point in their lives, even if they're not having a problem with the other ones. And earth is heaviness. It weighs you down. It's depression. And it's the opposite of joy. And many times throughout our lives will we run into this, what Rebbe Nachman calls the bite of the nachash, because it's the poison of the snake. Because the snake, what does the snake eat? Earth. Okay, the snake was condemned to eat earth. Depression is a very big problem in the world today. People are depressed. Children too, yes, that's true. And what we have to understand is that depression, we can look at it, we can look at anything in a variety of ways. If you want to, you can look at it as the way, the chemical imbalance in the brain and so on and so forth. But Rebbe Nachman explains to us that really depression is ultimately caused by not thinking properly. As are all our issues. We don't think properly. Why don't we think properly? Because we're not taught to think. Nobody sits down and teaches us how to think, except some of the tzaddikim, and especially Rebbe Nachman, which is why you should be learning this with your children, which is why you should learn at least his stories with your children, to begin with those. Because when we learn how to think in a healthy manner, our thoughts will habituate and we will become healthy. We will have gotten rid of that toxin of the tainted greed, and we will know everybody else out there in that big world, they're meshuggah, and we're okay. We may have problems, but we're okay because we're thinking with Das. What is Das? Holy awareness. Das is many things. I did hear Rabbi Rieti, I heard he was speaking about Das, but briefly, from this perspective, Das is holy awareness of Hashem, simple. You can do this at many levels. You can have Das, you can have great Das, which is great knowledge, and you can have simple Das. Because when we know that it's really Hashem in charge, we don't have depression, if we believe it. Because we believe that what comes from Hashem is good, and that everything comes from Hashem and it's good. That is a very pat and simplistic approach. Because how do you apply that when your feelings are running all over you? How do you apply that when your feelings are running all over you? It's very difficult. We feel our feelings control us. And we feel our thoughts happen to us. We feel our thoughts pop into our head. And that they just think themselves. But really, Rebbe Nachman says that we need to take hold of our thoughts the way we take hold of wild horses and rein them in and guide them. Some of the resistance to this, especially and I want to really, because we're going to be speaking about joy, focus a bit on depression, is people feel they will lose their identity if they structure their thoughts according to what Torah suggests. They feel that it's a battle with who they are. That's the Yetzer Hara telling you, for those of you who were here over the Shabbos, who know the story of the Turkey Prince, that's the Yetzer Hara telling you, you can't be a turkey and a prince. You can't be both. You can't be you, and you can't be Hashem's daughter, in this case, princess. But you can. Rebbe Nachman says you can. You can be yourself. As a matter of fact, it's imperative that you are yourself. As long as you realize yourself is not your anger. Yourself is not your pleasure seeking. Yourself is not your idle chatter. And yourself is not your sadness and depression, your atzvus. Okay.
Can't hear you.
You can't hear me? Try to speak louder. Yourself is not your atzvus. Yourself is not your feelings. We think that our feelings are us. It's very hard for us to distinguish between them. So, what do we do? What do we do in order to move from this heavy, weighty, earthy down into a joyful and light up? So Rebbe Nachman tells us that we need to make choices and be really proactive. He explains that people who don't believe in Hashem and live in the world out there, the ones who are eating all the LSD, right? He says that they are always unhappy. They're always miserable. Why? Because if something works out for them, then they're happy when it works out. But most of the time, things don't work out the way we want, and they can't turn to Hashem and say, I accept this with emunah. This is really the seed of depression. And I was having a conversation this Shabbos with somebody, and it actually made me change my talk. Because I was thinking about how depression and emunah and joy are all related. And I realized that, and I began frantically, I didn't have all my texts with me, but I began to realize that, wow, if we don't have that ingredient of emunah, we can't even get to that level of happiness. And here's what Rebbe Nachman says, if we don't have happiness, we don't have Yishuv Hadas, a settled and peaceful, calm mind. And if we don't have Yishuv Hadas, we can't have emunah. Because anxiety about our situation, or bitterness and heaviness about our situation, shows us a lack of emunah. So what do you do when someone has a real problem? It's a real problem. They've suffered a loss. They have a heavy weight on their heart. Okay? How can I say this to somebody? Oh, just pick yourself up. Have emunah. Think about Hashem. Read the words of the tzaddik. Follow his advice. Choose happiness. How could I say that to somebody? So you can't. You have to begin with people, including yourself, from where you're at. If you're feeling heavy and weighed down, it's really probably not going to be good to just say, okay, I'm supposed to be happy, and I'm not happy, so there's something wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with you. You have the habit of sadness, the habit of that bitter, heavy weight. You're nodding your head, right? It becomes a habit. You think a certain way. You know, when a drug addict, my husband works with people with addiction, so I know this. When a drug addict takes a drug, it wears like a chemical, neurological, I'm not a doctor, pathway in the brain. When you think an unhappy thought, we know that it releases chemicals. When you think a positive thought, we know it releases feel-good chemicals. That also wears a pathway in the brain. We can habituate our thoughts. But when we're in the doldrums, the medicine can't reach us. What do? We tell stories. Rebbe Nachman stories of the tzaddikim. There's no air. Okay. Stories of the tzaddikim. And we take these stories in, and they act as medication that even if we don't understand it intellectually, it does affect our neshama. Now, is that there? It was off. Why? So anyway, on that note, I'm going to tell another story. I actually would like to read it because I want to make sure I get all the words in, because it's a direct translation. Can everyone hear me? Okay, I'm going to do my best to project. I've been speaking all weekend, so. Okay. This is called The Clay Digger. And for all of you ladies who came today, the Katz children who have been wandering in and out, and there's Bela. Bela was the director, put on a wonderful play of The Clay Digger. It's fantastic. And what was so amazing was we know that this was organized not by me and not by Bela, but by Hashem, because we didn't discuss beforehand which story we were going to do. So it all worked out. Okay, here's the story. There was a poor man who earned his living by digging clay. Once, while digging, he discovered a huge diamond. Taking it to the local jeweler to be appraised, he was told there wasn't anyone on the European continent who could afford such a stone. And the only way he was going to be able to sell this diamond was to go to London. So the man, being a clay digger, digging around in that earth, right? Being a clay digger, he didn't have a lot of cash on hand. So what did he do? He sold everything he had and made his way from city to city until he finally reached the port. But by then he had used up all his money. Approaching the captain of the ship, he asked for passage on his ship. He showed him the diamond and explained that at the moment I'm short of cash, but look at this big diamond I have. I'll pay you the fare when I arrive in London. The captain agreed and gave him the best cabin on the ship. He also honored him by visiting him daily in his cabin, where the two men would spend hours talking and passing the time of day. During his meals, the man would keep the diamond on the table in front of him. He enjoyed looking at it and rejoicing in his glorious, wealthy future. Once after dinner, he dozed off, and the steward came into the room and cleared the table, and not realizing, shook the tablecloth with the crumbs over the edge of the ship. And the diamond, plop, that was the end of the diamond. The man woke up, and he realized that this captain was a very vicious, ruthless man, and that he would kill him, not without any hesitation. Last night the captain had a hook on his hand. He would kill him. So he started to fret and worry. Oh, this is the end of my world. What am I going to do? And he said, you know what? No matter what, I'll just act happy. I'm going to put on a happy face, and we'll see what will be. So he continued to act as if nothing at all had happened, and he did this so well the captain suspected nothing. Okay. Now, after talking for a while, before they got to London, the captain said to him, listen, he said, I don't have the greatest reputation, and I'm afraid that if I go to sell my cargo, which was a big hold full of wheat, if I go to sell my cargo, I'm afraid that nobody's going to want to buy from me. So how about you act as my agent, and we'll sign a contract, and I'll give you a nice percentage of the profits, okay? And the man said, sure, what do I have to lose? So he put the wheat through his name, got it through customs, and all of a sudden, the captain died. He just dropped dead. And the man was left the owner of an entire ship full of wheat, which was worth many, many, many times the value of his diamond. Okay. Rebbe Nachman says, and he concluded the story with, the diamond wasn't his, because the proof is he lost it. The wheat, however, was his, since it remained with him. But how did he get what was truly his? Only because he strengthened himself with joy when he felt like everything was lost. This isn't actually easy. The story is short, and we say that's very nice for the man in the story. But how can we strengthen ourselves with joy when it seems like everything is lost? The truth is that if we work on having that connection to the tzaddik, who is, Rebbe Nachman says, the fifth element, who acts as the catalyst to right, to correct all the other elements, we can strengthen ourselves with joy. What does that mean? I want to talk about it. What does it mean, a connection with the tzaddik? So the tzaddikim are very important to Jewish life. We know about the Avos. We know about Moshe Rabbeinu. We know about later tzaddikim, the Baal Shem Tov. Okay. We know about later on the Chafetz Chaim. We have a lot of tzaddikim to choose from. Rebbe Nachman's role, I call him the umbrella tzaddik, because he says you can learn from other tzaddikim, but take my teachings and make them part of yours, and make them part of your cure. Because what they are designed to do is to bring you to joy so that you can heal and do complete teshuvah. because we can't come close to Hashem if we feel that what He's giving us is heavy. We can't even daven, says Rebbe Nachman, properly if we're unhappy, because our tears and our lack and the sense that there's something missing, even if there is something missing, that's legitimate, by the way. But if we're davening to Hashem and we're not really connecting with the idea that He can provide, but what He's provided for us up until now is exactly what we need. Now, those of you who know that I'm not standing up here joyful because I've never had any problems in my life. Okay? Like everyone else. Everyone has a story. Everybody has a piece of them that weighs them down. Rebbe Nachman explains that depression is associated with the spleen. And the spleen produces black bile. And this black bile courses through our bodies and goes into the blood. In other words, depression taints our entire circulation. It causes our systems, all of them, because blood goes everywhere, it causes them to eventually become more and more and more sluggish until the neshama says, I don't want to live like this anymore. Okay. It's heavy, it weighs you down. And I don't know if everybody's been there, but I've been there in my past. I've had times where I didn't understand that in order to change, in order to be happy, I had to make these connections. I had to learn what was on offer for me, and I had to learn Amunah with Rebbe Nachman. And it did change my life. And it changed the life of so many people I know. And that's why people said about that connection with Tzaddik, through his teachings, through his stories, through other Breslovers, through going to Uman, whatever it may be, that those teachings with the Tzaddik are the medicine that we need, because he tells us how to organize our thoughts so we're not forming patterns that drive other people away from us and that drive us away from our true selves. So I do want to speak about also briefly, what do you do? Somebody asked me this question, but I wanted to speak about it, a sensitive topic. What do you do with mental illness that's been diagnosed as depression? Somebody has a clinical depression. This is very common, by the way. As a matter of fact, people are very quick to label a depression today because the current thinking is if you have a problem, it's kinder to say it's a sickness, and you can seek medicine for it or treatment for it, and it, in a way, takes the you out of the picture. You can be passive, okay? So what do we do about this? So what we have to understand is, I think that we have to, on the one hand, be kind and accept that this is the current thinking. And on the other hand, when it comes to ourselves and the people we know and love, the people we want to help, it's very